If you're over 50, then this video I think may be for you. I want to start by telling you a little story and how it came about. I was thinking of ideas for this video, and it occurred to me that this week would have been my father's 103rd birthday. He died now 14 years ago. But to give you context here, he was born in 1923 in Liverpool, England, and had a regular growing up childhood. He saw the war. He was actually trained in Canada to be a navigator in the Royal Air Force. He went on and worked in a factory on a milling machine before joining the Michelin tire company. Now, why am I telling you this story? Because at the age of 49, and I think it was roughly 20 years he'd been with Michelin, he decided he'd had enough of working for the big man, should we say. Now, to give context, I was only 3 years old at the time. We're going back to 1972. And my brother was 3 years older than me. And he decided to leave his safe job with Michelin to pursue his own business. Now, he stayed in the tyre business. Literally, he started a tyre shop in England. But think about it. At 49, he reinvented himself. And to give context, if you fast forward over 50 years now, 54 years, the business is successful as ever. My mother, who's 84, still works in the business, not through having to, but through choice. My brother's in the business too. And that all came about from his reinvention. And he started that business really from word of mouth. There was no social media or internet or anything to help publicize the business. In fact, my father always said that he never really believed in advertising. He believed the best form of advertising was through word of mouth. So if anybody ever told you that starting over again or reinventing yourself or whatever you want to call it is a young person's game, I can tell you that it isn't. In fact, and I'm going to grab my phone for this, there's actually a stat here, and it's from the Kauffman Foundation. And it says, people aged 55 to 64 make up roughly 25% of all new entrepreneurs in the US, up from 15% in the late 1990s. And that number is going up. I just saw a comment down LinkedIn from a post I'd put up about a 55-year-old software engineer. He was a QA software engineer, saying how he had spent 9 months looking for a job. And in that post, I talk about how recruiters generally see people who are 57 roughly and older as too old to basically try and find work for. I'll leave a link to that blog below. And maybe you're still working. And I don't know about you, but I used to get that Sunday evening dread about the Monday morning. And in fact, in some cases, it would be a Saturday evening dread because I'd be preparing mentally for Sunday, for Monday. And I have to say, that ever since starting my own business, I am so pleased to see the back of that. But here's the thing. What I did when I started my own business was forced upon me because I lost my job just over a year ago. And I'm not saying that you should do drastic steps and leave your job and try and do something yourself, unless you're in a position where you can do that. But quite often, reinvention starts from the smallest things, making the slightest changes in your life, making changes that you can actually achieve. Because the more you achieve, the better you feel, the more you'll carry on. If you try and overachieve and fail, that will knock you down. And if, like so many of us, you're not sure of exactly what it is you want to do, I always say, look at your younger self before life took over, before the career, the mortgage, the family. Look at your younger self. What were your passions back then? I'm not saying you'll find anything there for sure, because let's face it, a lot of us grow out of our teenage passions. And there you can find some hidden gems where you think, yeah, I used to enjoy doing that. Maybe there's something you can do with it now. Despite what the market says, when you're job hunting, trying to find something, and you're getting rejected all the time, despite what that says, you have something to give. And that's your experience that a 20 or even 30-year-old somebody does not have. And if you can't find a job, think about starting a business, using that experience, that knowledge that you've gained over all those years. I've said it before in a previous video. A company can take away your job, but they can't take away your experience and your knowledge. That's yours to own. One interesting side note, Colonel Sanders, KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken. He was 62 when he started KFC, 62. So the reality is, you're never too old. And the old Chinese saying about when is the best time to plant a tree, well, that was 20 years ago. Well, you know what? 20 years is in the past. You can't do anything about that. But that Chinese saying continues. And it says the next best time to plant a tree is today. Check out the Empire Over 50 website. I have plenty of free resources there. You can have a look. I think there's like 22 PDFs up there right now. Take a look at it at empowerover50.com. And I'm going to leave a link at the end of this video to a video I made earlier about myself starting over at 57. So be sure to stay and watch that. And remember, a marathon starts with one step. Don't try and run the whole marathon at one time. Start something new. Start that reinvention. Start that business idea. But start it just slowly and gently with one step and keep the momentum going. I'll see you next week. Cheers.